Welcome everybody. Today we're making a 5.5 by 14-inch stave snare drum. We're cutting down some walnut that we took out of Uncle Dave's wood pile. Everything needs to be cut to a pretty exact size, and then we have to set the saw blade to 11 degrees. And here we go. We're cutting the each stave, actually the long boards out. And now we're cutting those down to 5.5 inches. All right, laying out the each individual stave, and now we're gluing them all together. And we've got masking tape on the back that we can pull all the way around, and which we then clamp off with some hose clamps that we've kind of joined together. Once we clamp them off, we check for the gaps, and hopefully we've got some good solid glue joints on it. So after we let it dry overnight and take a look, take all the masking tape off. And we're going to use a homemade jig to try to round off these edges. Got some scrap plywood laying around, and just an idea to see if this will work. Again, some scrap wood with a slot cut in the top, which that's where the router's going to run. And once we get all the hard edges knocked off, we sanded with 220 grit. Now, trying to make the lugs, I got some scrap aluminum that was laying in the, in a metal pile, and just checking to see if I had enough to do it. Turns out I did, so I was able to cut off some rough pieces. And here I'm cutting down each one of these aluminum pieces to size. I think if I ever do this again and make my own lugs, I'm going to make a jig for this that'll make them a little more precise and a little quicker to do. I had to cut out 8 lugs, and the plan is to put them on the drill press and then tap them out with some threads. So each lug has four threaded holes on it, and I've got the same size thread for the screws that go through the shell and also the tension rods. So we're just cleaning up all the saw marks. And then sanded up till about 600 grit sandpaper, rounded some edges and stuff, and just polishing them up to see how they look. A few of them came out a little rough, but ended up being okay in the end. So here we're making sure the edges of the drum are flat, and we're going to put a bevel on them for the heads. This is a 45-degree router bit with a bearing on it, and the router is mounted to some MDF. Here we're laying out the lug spacing. There's 8 lugs, so we have to divide that evenly around 360 degrees, and we're just making a guide board here on that same MDF. And here's a jig we made out of scrap wood to mark where to drill the holes for the lugs. And everything was drilled, so we went ahead and put some wipe-on polyurethane and just kind of sealing up the wood a little bit before we go ahead and spray. I think I did about 4 coats of spray-on polyurethane, and then we did a light sanding with some 800 grit sandpaper, wet sanded that down, kind of knock off the high spots. And then we shot it with a few more coats and to finish it off. All right, now we're putting all the lugs on. All right, doing a test fit for the top head. Of course, you drummers out there will realize that I've got the bottom rim holding the top head on, which I figured out after I went ahead and tightened it up. All right, there we go. We've got the drum upside down now with the correct rim for the correct head finally. All right, the head is tightening up. Everything sounds pretty good, and we've got a snare drum. All right, and here's my first attempt at building a snare drum. Well, I definitely learned a lot, and I'd probably change a few things, but I'm pretty happy. Thanks for watching.